always said this is a projection. It's the best that we have. It's not perfect.
Well,
And
aren't
we're
they
working
right
with it.
by saying that? I mean, maps
Yeah,
are
yeah,
just
They're
projections.
exactly
that's
right.
what he's
Yes,
saying.
they are right. And that's what I'm saying. They are totally right by saying that.
Yeah.
But he's
And
going around saying, like, they came out and said, this is the absolute truth. This
Oh,
is the
yeah.
flat Earth map. Blah, 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 blah. And that's not how it went at all.
I've
So that guy's
never
completely irrelevant.
I've never really liked Flat Earth Asshole's research. I thought he was just funny, man. I enjoy the shit out of him. How cocky he is, and he talks about yeah, he's a nut. Exactly. He goes to like open mics and karaoke bars and just like lets himself go. Says, "Oh, we never went to the moon. And what is this? The lunar module or tweaker homeless shelter?" That's his thing right there.
He takes credit for that too, and that wasn't even him. That was Matt that came up with that.
Exactly.
Matt's the one that originally said that, and then he was like, he was all mad about somebody saying, "Oh, you're saying my T-shirt, blah 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 blah." Actually, guy, you didn't even come up with that. It's like, wow, dude.
Yeah, actually, we have Antonio. Antonio's actually here. What do you have to say about Flat Earth Asshole?
You're coming across like a complete twat.
Thank you, Antonio. Yes.
Oh, that's a great soundbite, dude. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. It's
really
staying
is.
on the board. So on the phone right now, we have Brian Staveley
Oh yeah.
from the
Should
real.
we let him know we're? Oh.
Stavely.
Okay.
Stavely. Don't make the correct yet, but just so you know, Stavely.
Stavely. I haven't like separated. Today we speak to Brian Stavely from the realnewsonline.com. Let's see. I'm just practicing there.
Oh, I was like, should we at least give a head up before we officially start? Yeah, Jesus.
Stavely. I just got to make sure to hammer that shit in. Stavely. All right. Shall we get started?
Sure.
I mean, we're warming up. That's what we were doing there.
Yeah, right.
All right, gents. Let's take we would take a shot, but we're going to cheers our beer. If you're drinking with us, you can drink with us, bud.
I wish I was. I just got water tonight, but fine. Hey, you guys are interviewing me. I'm ready. Whatever you want to talk about.
He's you can hear him rubbing those hands together, getting ready. All right.
I really was.
So tell us who you are. What do you do for money, and what brought you to the flat Earth theory to get started, bud?
Okay. Well, I am 40 years old now. I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts. Who am I? I don't know. I used to be a guy that was really into like sports and video games and all that, but that kind of all changed in 2010 when I quote unquote woke up to 9/11. I actually took 9/11. I don't know how much you've looked at my website, but I go a lot deeper on 9/11 than the standard truther stories that most people tell. So I caught quite a bit of opposition for it. So I did that for a few years, and my whole thing was I started my website because of 9/11 and media fakery in general, whether it be fake shootings, fake information just put out about the medicinal system, fake information by the government. But it ended up turning into, after researching 9/11 a lot, it turned into these false flags, including 9/11, turned out to be hoaxes and not false flags where people are actually dying. Now, there was a lot of opposition I caught along the way with that.
I would imagine, yeah.
Unlike unlike Flat Earth, with Flat Earth, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the theories. How there's some people think there's a dome, some people think there's not, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But these people can work together in Flat Earth. It's fine. There is some separation, there is some division, but for the most part, these people can work together. Well, when you're in 9/11, once you start talking about, okay, there were no planes, the planes were CGI. Once I got to that point, I was thrown out of forums that I was moderators of. Then once I start looking into the deaths, that was a totally new ball game, and all it did is it basically got everybody in the 9/11 movement to come after me, from Judy Wood to Willie Rodriguez to all these people are calling me a shill and just all types of shit. And when you really look into it, let me ask you a question real quick about 9/11.
Sure.
You remember on 9/11 how we're told 50,000 people are inside the building,
Sure.
Approximately 50,000 workers inside the building, approximately 3,000 dead. That leaves 47,000 people to escape the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember all those dramatic videos of the people running? out of the buildings?
Yeah, there were a lot of people running away from those buildings.
Actually, you don't. You remember people running. You haven't seen one video of anybody exiting the building on 9/11.
I've never seen any video of anything coming out of those.
Well, other than the
trains.
people falling or jumping out of the windows.
I've seen the ones where the clouds are about to like get everybody and they're running from that, but I've never seen anyone run out of the building.
No, just the jump.
That was all staged scenery, and the jumper shots that you speak of, those did not air on 9/11. Those aired after. Not like
right, because I remember.
Yes,
I was heading
on the day.
I was heading to work that morning, and like the radio was all just something about a plane crash, and I was like hungover as fuck, maybe even still drunk. I don't know, just like fucking. I don't care about a goddamn plane. Like I want to hear some music on my drive to work or something, and I get in there, and everybody's gathered around this shitty little like 8-inch black and white TV or something like that they happen to have in the office, and we got to see the second plane hit, and I was like, oh fuck. And that's what we did at work all day, was just watch the coverage, air quotes, as it happened. But you're right, I don't recall ever seeing people fleeing. I don't remember any jumping talked about during that moment. It was all later.
First of all, I have a hard time believing that 18 years ago, or however long ago that was, you were working stiff. Weren't you still in high school back then?
I graduated in 2000, motherfucker.
Oh, okay, so you're 1 year out. You're already working office life a year later after high
No, dude,
school?
I was working at a fucking taco shop.
Okay, that's all right. I digress. So, Brian, I do want to let's explore this 9/11 a little bit since you're on it. Like, so
yeah, this is usually how we end every interview we
usually
ever have, is asking about 9/11. So you just fucking
exactly.
We gotta up our game now. We're starting at the end.
You're in the camp that believes that this is all a hoax. This is not a false flag. This is not where President Bush allowed this to happen. You think this is a complete fabrication?
I think it's a complete fabrication, right? And I am not just basing that on, say, the video. Like I told you, there's a lack of video from that day. When you actually look into the deaths, and you look in, for instance, if you go into the Social Security Death Index, and which is very accurate. It's usually over about 90% accurate. There's about 2,500 people that aren't even listed as dying on 9/11. If you look at the death tolls for the state of New York, it averages about 500 people in the whole state every day that died. That death toll never spiked. Then if you go through the memorials and you take the time to go through all the memorials, the two major ones were like the CNN memorial and the Voices of September memorial. You'll notice that all the pictures that are in the memorials are all photoshopped clones of each other. As in, like, let's say there was a picture and I died on 9/11, and there's a picture of my mother hugging me, and I'm in one memorial. In the other memorial, there would be a picture of me, the background would be whited out, and my mother that was giving me a hug would be erased, and these would be presented as two authentic pictures. Now, you tell me when that would ever be acceptable.
Well, things, photos and things are weird, and videos, who knows what's going on with real videos, but let's think about real things here, like, what about the people on the planes? Did they ever exist? He
was saying the planes don't even exist.
Because there were no planes. And if you study the plane footage, it's very easy to see. I mean, you see better crash physics on a Nintendo 64, honestly. I mean, there's like
yeah, well, it was 2001 back then. So, and games like Resident Evil
64 was out by...
And Resident Evil was out by then, and Resident Evil was like the most highest quality. We were talking about PS1 Resident Evil there. Yeah, anyways, but what was I getting at with this fucking plane here?
Well, you asked about the passengers, and that's the big thing. Okay, so what about all the passengers?
Oh.
Well, the planes never took off. There were no planes, and it's without me showing you the images and stuff right here. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I just had to connect something. Okay. Without actually having the images to show you here right now, I don't know if I could probably drop some in the Skype chat for you.
Sure.
Some GIFs. I mean, the planes
are you able to record his screen?
The planes go halfway in the tower without even penetrating it.
So yeah, I'm on your website, therealnewsonline.com. Not Real News Online, but therealnewsonline.com. And there's a GIF that we're looking at right now where we see boop 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 boop, and it just like sinks right into like it's made of some sort of cloth or something, or like styrofoam or something.
And also, wouldn't it? I get that it's crashing, but at least parts of it would be flying out the other side of the building. At the speed a fucking plane is flying.
It did happen that way, though. But Brian,
allegedly, but it's sure as shit not in the video.
But that's hollow aluminum. That's hollow aluminum going through 84 steel support beams and concrete. It should not come out the other side intact,
it's going.
Which is one of the images that they showed.
Do you know how fast it was going when it was approaching the World Trade Center, though?
Yeah, supposedly it was going 500 miles an hour, which is also actually impossible at sea level. You can't fly a commercial jet at that speed.
Disagree.
Very
much disagree.
At sea level?
Not
Yes.
supposed to.
Level?
Oh, you very much could. The plane would be on the verge of ripping itself apart, but you very much well could.
And it's a couple hundred feet
you
up.
think an amateur pilot that's never flown a commercial airliner could do 500 miles per hour at sea level?
You
gotta remember, these aren't professional pilots either.
No, of course not.
But that's what the report said. Like, who's knows if that's actually real or not? If we're gonna be going by the NSIT, the NIST report there, they said that they just took some flight lessons. They barely knew how to do any of this. And then we have the Pentagon where
these were fully loaded. According to the story, fully loaded passenger airplanes that actually had intended destinations being helmed by amateur pilots.
That's not true either. They weren't allegedly fully loaded.
So you're saying they kind of never existed?
They allegedly only had about 60 people apiece
when
they should have about 250.
So what do you think about
is that because these were allegedly or these were amateur pilots? I never heard that part about the pilots.
They weren't really using planes at all, and it's easier to fake 60 people than 250 of them.
Well, right. I mean, for sake of the story, though.
But didn't we watch that? Didn't we watch that live? The video of it going through the. I've seen several videos of this plane or two planes, or at least this one plane coming through. The second one, I think we never saw the first one, but we all saw the second one on TV. You think that is a complete CGI bullshit?
Absolutely.
And then they used explosions to make it look like it happened?
Absolutely, there would be some sort of explosions used for people that actually had a view of the buildings from, other parts of New Jersey across the Hudson River, stuff like that. They're obviously going to have some form of trickery to make you believe that that's what really happened. But yes, there were no planes that hit the towers, and even if there were planes, where's all the parts from the planes? There is no large wing sections. There is no engines. As a matter of fact, they found what was supposed to be an engine to the plane, right? Mm-hmm. They found it on the corner of Church and Murray Street. It was supposedly fell 90 stories. It didn't dent the pavement. It was behind yellow tape under scaffolding, and it wasn't even from a commercial jet. It was a small single-engine plane that they just planted there.
We had another guest talk about this random engine they found, and the engine doesn't even fit
just a
the
random
fucking
plane engine they found.
Or they planted, but the engine they found doesn't actually match the plane that they were saying hit the build. Yeah. So them saying this is part of the wreckage from the accident, it can't possibly. I think it was fucking Ryan's Den was the one talking about the airplane engine that they found, and it doesn't fit at all the type of plane that was involved.
No, because there was no plane. They just planted that engine there.
But when they they've got somehow made those match. If you're going to this much of to these lengths to make this fucking story, couldn't you have at least got that one obvious detail right?
They don't care because people are that asleep. They don't need to. They don't need to haul in a big 747 engine because people are that asleep. They'll you know what I mean? Like, how many people right now do you hear kicking and screaming about the wrong size engine on Church and Murray? Nobody gives a damn about it because everybody just believes the official story. And the other thing is the whole buildings themselves were an illusion. You guys need to take a really good look through my 9/11 work at some point, but those towers were built in 1972 and they were completed in 1976. In 1978, you can still see clear through the top third of the building where the floors were never even finished, And these are the same companies, Cantor Fitzgerald, Marsh McLennan, just those two companies alone claimed 1,400 of the supposed lives. And they were on floors that were never even built. And even due to their own occupancy report, they admitted being on there since 1976. And there were not even floors for them to stand on.
They never got finished.
And as crazy as that sounds, the elevators also do not access those floors. If you're on my website and you look at the second page, it says 9/11, the complete media hoax exposed. That might be where you saw some of the GIFs. But if you just click that link, I mean, I've got pictures of the elevators there. I got GIFs of the airplanes going straight through.
Yeah, we're looking at them right here.
Yeah, take a look as we're talking. Look at some of the images. It's pretty amazing. The elevators literally skipped floor 78 through about 102, and that is the exact area where the supposed impact zone was, and supposedly where all the people were trapped.
So
and you're gonna wonder, well,
wait a minute here. How is this even like? So these people that worked in this building, you're saying nobody works in this building either?
No. You're saying those floors were.
I'm saying a good portion of it was cordoned off, unaccessible by the public, and yes, there were real companies more near the bottom of the towers. But listen to the little trick that they pulled here. Have you heard of the Windows of the World restaurant and the observation deck?
Yeah, sure, right on near the top.
Yes, on the roof. One's on the roof of each building, okay? And those were real tourist attractions. So real people would go in those buildings. They would get in the elevator. It would literally skip over all those floors where the impact zone was. I have pictures also of those floors from the inside also where they're vacant and they're supposed to be occupied. But they would take the people to these tourist attractions. They'd get real tickets. They'd really visit the place. But what they also did is they built a subway, right? Now, you're probably wondering, okay, well, if there's 50,000 people in this building every day, how the hell are you going to fool the neighbors? I mean, where's all the people coming out of the towers at 5 o'clock every day, right?
Right.
They built a subway in the lobby of the World Trade Center that brings 300,000 people a day into the lobby. Now, if you think of Manhattan, and not to stereotype anybody, but if people are taking a subway in Manhattan into the World Trade Center, what are those people going to be dressed like?
Suits.
Yeah, business attire.
Just like people that work in the towers, right? So when 300,000 people are streaming in and out of the towers because they took the subway, and then there are some workers actually going to their own floors, who's going to know? Who's going to catch on to the illusion? It's the perfect magic trick. The perfect magic trick. And like what you said with to skip around a little bit, what you said about like remember we saw the plane hit live, how could it hit live, this and that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How hard do you think it is to pre-record a movie, chop it up into look like newscasts, and throw a live banner on it?
It's not hard at all. You're absolutely right.
It's not hard at all.
In fact, a lot of movies have played with that.
But then that would require people to be in on this thing, and why isn't the why?
Yes.
So we're saying like if there are people.
Doesn't mean every reporter in the world is in on it. Just like when we get into flat Earth,
sure.
It doesn't mean every pilot and every scientist is in on it. They've all been indoctrinated more than anybody else. Most of the people on the media, they're being fed information. They're reading off a teleprompter, much like our president does. You know what I mean? They're reading information. They've worked in the news for so long. They believe that the news is what they're told. Now, there are bigger name reporters that were on the street and made some very weird interviews that they would definitely be in on it. But I'm not saying the entire U.S. media is in on it. The U.S. media is very much at the head of the snake here. Just like I'm going to get into NASA later, and they're very much near the head of the snake. They might not be the tippy top. Anybody can argue, what that is. People want to say the Vatican, the Jews, the Jesuits. I'm not going to get into that whole because I don't know. You know what I mean? That's a guess. But the media, the U.S. media, and NASA are very, very high up there. They're very, very, very involved. And if you look at the 52, and it's very easy to find this. I actually put it on my site, but you can YouTube it. YouTube 52 angles of Flight 175 at some point, and just watch it. The trajectories of the plane, and it's all one plane, the second plane, they do not even match. I put a couple up on my website.
Just depending upon like which angle the video is taken from? Is that what you mean?
Not even just the angle the video is taken from. There are ones that are taken from similar perspectives. So there'll be a videographer that supposedly say in an adjacent building on a similar floor to another videographer. They're filming the plane. On one of them, it's coming down like a dive bomber. There's other ones where most of them it's coming straight in.
Right. I
There's
usually
actually
see it.
shots where it's going up, bro. It's going in, and then it ascends and smashes in through the tower. They're different colored planes. This is just bad computer animation. That's what it is. And
goddamn Michael Bay movie.
But amateur footage back then wasn't what we have today, where everyone has a goddamn cell phone, And then I watch fight videos. I love watching someone get knocked out videos, and it's still shitty quality sometimes, It's probably worse quality than we had back then.
Right, but this wasn't all amateur.
Yeah,
like, the first plane had already hit.
That doesn't change the trajectory of a flight. You could
That's
have
true.
the shittiest resolution on your cell phone. That's not going to change the angle the plane comes in.
Yeah,
right?
but then you have to understand where that person was taking, where he was
but
filming it from. And just like, it could look different angles. Perspective changes lots of different things.
But it's not going to change as much as even just on
so drastically where an airplane is making a dive bomb.
Or sometimes it's like curving up.
You guys are right. Perhaps maybe that's the way it flew into. Who knows what actually happened? You're right. I
don't know. Has there ever been reports of people who are on the sidewalk, because a plane crashing into a building, you'd think, especially in New York City, there's going to be thousands of fucking people being like, I was standing right there. I saw it fucking happen.
Yeah, and
where's all that?
Not only is there a lot of that missing. There's one called the Evan Fairbanks shot. I put it up on my website for you guys to see. It's in a GIF. It's a great video.
Check that out.
You can tell that he is. It's like a layered image. He's put in, and then the graphics behind him are put in, and the airplane is coming in. Now this is a commercial jetliner doing 500 miles an hour, and it's only 90 stories above him. And he doesn't even turn his head and look at it. Then it smashes in the tower. He's just sitting there having his lunch. And then he turns like 2 seconds later and looks up because it's just totally fake.
Shit, what was that?
Brian, wouldn't it be easier? Wouldn't it be easier if this actually happened sort of as if we were as we saw it as things happened? Wouldn't that be much easier than to orchestrate such a massive thing like those?
No,
you said the buildings were
the
buildings were constructed in the 70s, right? With those levels, those floors, empty, as you were saying. This has been a plan since the 70s when they built that.
No.
Oh, absolutely. Probably even before then. It's been in the plan at least since the 70s when they built them. But they planned these things way longer than 30 years, though. I would think it's probably been planned longer, but guaranteed it was planned 30 years in advance. There's tons of predictive programming that show the towers coming down in the many years leading up to it. But let me address the jumpers real quick. This will blow your mind because you've never noticed this. And I guarantee you when you go and look at it, you're going to be like, oh, my God, this kid was right. So on 9/11, they show you all these people trying to squeeze out the windows, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. We saw video of people hanging out the windows.
And even just leaping.
Yes, this is great. So you remember them hanging out the windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they were squeezing out the windows. The windows are about 4 feet tall, so they're all crouching to get out these windows, right?
Uh-huh.
In reality, the World Trade Center windows were all 7 feet tall, and they did not open.
So they cut into it.
So what you were seeing there was actually a stage set somewhere that wasn't built to scale. Pretty hard to build the World Trade Center to scale, but even that portion of it was not built to scale, and you have this dramatic scene of all these people squeezing out these little 4-foot windows, and they weren't smashed, they were opened. They opened 4-foot windows and were squeezing out. And I can even show you pictures from inside the building of the windows being 7 feet tall with gentlemen actually standing in the window frame, and his head isn't even touching the top because it's 7 feet tall. So, those are all staged shots.
This is very interesting.
The other question is that always want to ask is well, people always know you guys know the government doesn't give a shit about us, okay? Obviously, we know that.
Well,
or at least I would think.
Not other than how much we can vote and keep them profitable.
Exactly.
Okay. Now think about this. As crazy as it seems to hoax this event, right? Is it easier to kill 3,000 people or to fake it? Now, before you answer, think what happens when you really kill 3,000 people. You have 3,000 plus families coming after you. They're going to demand a real investigation, not this
funerals, insurance problems.
The 9/11 truth. There's going to be all kinds of investigation if you really kill 3,000 people. And people live for money, right? Money makes the world go around. As sad as that is, it's the truth. Everybody needs money. There's a victim compensation fund that's set up for the victims' families of 9/11.
Right.
Each family was awarded between $2.3 million and I forget the upper number. You know, there was some more for some of the businesses, but we'll say $2.3 million per family. Do you know out of the 2,991 families, I believe it was, do you know that only 63 people collected their money? We're talking about free money from the government. The breadwinner in your family died in a terrorist attack, and you're not going to go down and pick up your free $2 million?
Well, I feel $2 million is nothing compared to a life. I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, you're going to pick up the money, but I feel like maybe they want more, and they're not just going to pick up these pennies when they lost somebody drastically like this.
I agree. It's not closure. It's not closure. You lost your loved one.
No, it's definitely not pennies either. Like, if your husband or your spouse dies, you're not money grubbing, but you still get a life insurance policy or something. You're still gonna go pick up the money. It might not give you closure, and you're still gonna grieve your lost one every day. And here's another one. For you to think about. When this kid's saying the death's a fake, the death certificate's a fake. I could show you hundreds and hundreds of these Photoshop pictures, but how about this? You guys use Facebook, obviously. That's how you guys get in touch with me, right?
Sure.
Okay, how often do you see somebody put up a stupid picture of their cat or their dog, or it's my
So
dog's
many.
Every 9/11, how often do you see people put up home videos of their lost loved ones that died on 9/11?
Well, that's an interesting thing that you have to mention because, I mean, have you ever met anybody that supposedly lost somebody?
Well, that would be a better question for you. Us, obviously, are so far away, it's very unlikely that we would know anybody, but you're from that neighborhood.
You sound like you're from New England, so...
I've met people who say they've known somebody who knew their dogs, doctors, veterinarians, sister-in-law.
Like the fucking 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Every time they get offensive with me, and I keep it polite with these people, every time they get offensive, oh, well, I know somebody that died in there, my cousin died in there, and I'll real politely say, oh, well, what was your cousin's name? I will never even get a friggin' answer.
Weird.
I'll never even get an answer. People are so emotionally attached to it that they'll just say that they knew somebody, or because somebody told them that they knew somebody, and that's it.
Well, it makes sense though, because not what they're saying, but that we might not ever meet anybody that knows somebody. We'll only know people that know them, not the actual families. Because how many people actually died supposedly, Brian?
3,000.
Like 2,000, 3,000 people.
2,900.
2,900. So. 2,900 people out of how many people? I mean, if we lived more on the, in New York, we might have known somebody. But
well, no, that's what I was saying. It's a lot more likely that he would, because he's from there.
I'm close. I'm only 200 miles from there. I don't know anybody that died there.
Yeah, weird, man.
A lot closer than
and let me get to this. So there is one guy that supposedly died that's in the next town over. Okay, so this is what I have to hear from people. I have to hear, oh, well, what about Oganowski? He was the pilot of Flight 11, blah, 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 blah. So I did my due diligence, and I'm going to dig into this guy to see if he was – now, in my opinion, since there's so many fake death certificates – well, actually, they only faked a few. There's 2,600 missing death certificates.
That's right.
There's so many fake photos. I tend to think – and it's much easier to just fake identities than to actually take people and relocate them. But I do think there is a handful of people that maybe were relocated, told to keep their mouths shut, got compensated. I think this guy might be one of them. So what I did is I went to go see if he was indeed a real person. I went to the high school and the college that he went to around here. I got the yearbooks. There was some speculation that he was his brother that some people were trying to say, but that was disinfo. They are two different people. Then I went and I looked into – you can access people's tax records on their property. It's public information.
Yep.
So I accessed the tax records on his property because first I found his daughter lying about when they moved into Drake, which is the next town over, which I thought was very weird. And then I found a Photoshop picture of him, and he's sitting in the cockpit of the plane. Then there's the exact same picture again with his daughter on the lap, but it's the same picture, the same lighting, this and that. But it would have been way too old for her to be even born yet. She's younger than me, and this picture was like from the early 70s, okay? But anyways, to get to the point, so I look at the property records, and the property is not in his name. Which, hey, it's a woman's world now too. It could be in his wife's name, not his name, whatever, right? But he is a long-time airline pilot for American Airlines. You would figure his name would be on the property. So her name was on it, not his. So then I looked to see where the property came from. She got the property for the sum of like it was like $1. I might be off on that, but it was like single digits. She got the property from a company called Avco. Avco manufactures missiles for Raytheon.
Wow. Okay.
That definitely does raise some flags.
It raises a lot of flags, and then some of the phone calls from the plane. There was, do you guys know who Mark Bingham is?
No, I don't know.
I believe so.
Okay. Now, if you guys ever want to laugh, listen to the 9/11 phone calls. One guy calls his mother. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He's like, "Mom, this is Brian," or something.
Oh, he doesn't just say this is Brian. He uses his last name.
Yeah, when he calls his mom.
He says, "You believe me, don't you?" He says, "Mom, the plane's been hijacked. This is Mark Bingham. You believe me, don't you?"
Man, but this is just like watching like those Sandy Hook interviews, and you're like, you can't honestly know in that situation how you will react or do something like that. You know, maybe he wanted to portray like a seriousness to his mother, like. You know, this is me, who I am.
You don't say first and last name. I mean, I don't call my mom and be like, this is Nicholas Ryder, date of birth March 28th, 1982. I am absolutely serious, right? Like you'd say, Mom, holy fucking shit, I'm freaking out. Like,
okay, so you're trying to say that the smart elites that are behind this perpetrated action against us did this and fucked this up, and they fucked that up, and they think that's all right, like. Come on, they're trying to orchestrate such.
I actually, on all these events, I think they show their hand on purpose. I do.
So they can laugh at you.
They do make mistakes on purpose. Not like screw the whole thing up because they want to fool the masses. They make mistakes on purpose all the time. Like when we get into NASA and stuff, and we'll point out some mistakes with some of the CGI and stuff. Am I really to believe that they don't fix that and post edit? That some of that gets out on purpose. Absolutely. Absolutely, some of this gets out on purpose. And I wouldn't just say, oh, 9/11 suspicious because Mark Bingham called his mother and said, hi, it's me, it's Mark Bingham. You believe me, don't you? It's the preponderance of phone calls. It's the lack of evidence of airplanes. It's the obvious CGI of the buildings. Not only the airplanes. Look at the buildings next time. When you look at those videos of the airplanes going into the building, you're going to notice something's very missing. There's no windows on the building. Almost like their graphic program they were using in 2001 couldn't properly do the reflections on the building. They're missing. You don't even see them in the buildings. They're totally gone. It's like they're these white out.
But that only proves that cameras back in that time were not as great as they are now.
No, it doesn't prove that because we have images from before that date of the same buildings, and you can see the windows just fine. They just look like that on 9/11.
So you were saying
that argument's out the window.
You could be right, man. I don't have a really strong opinion either way on 9/11, but I did want to mention about a plane crash in Paris or in France here. It's called Germanwings Flight 9525. It was an intentional, deliberate plane crash. Are you familiar?
Not really.
Something you should look up.
It, but I couldn't give a strong opinion on it.
The co-pilot went nutty. He completely went off the rails, and he dipped the plane down with passengers in it and crashed it into the Alps. And what happened is that the plane nearly disintegrated. It nearly disintegrated. There's still pieces left of it, a lot of debris of it, but nothing huge at all. And this could explain a lot of things like the Pentagon or, not the crashing into the actual buildings itself, why there's no hole. I mean, the speed of it itself, if we're going by what they're saying, 500 miles an hour, and you're saying that doesn't exist, but we're going by that because that's the official story. Like, if it was going that fast, this is what would happen at those speeds. Like, you got to wonder what would happen to a plane going 500 miles an hour, dipping, and just like, why would it disappear? And like, I asked, but you have something, the Germanwings 9525 flight that happened. So go ahead.
On the same note, right? Let's say I take a baseball, an airplane, anything you want. Let's say I'm standing in my room right now and I'm looking at the wall, right? Let's say I take a baseball, and let's say I'm Roger Clemens and I throw the baseball 100 miles an hour and it goes through my wall, right? When is the hole in the wall going to be made? Is it going to be made when the baseball goes through it, or is it going to be made 5 seconds later?
It will happen as soon as it goes
impact.
through. Yeah, upon impact, it will happen. Yes.
But that's not what happened on 9/11. You can see the planes penetrate halfway through the building before the building is even damaged.
But if it's doing 500, yeah, but if it's doing over 500 miles an hour from the tip of the nose of, what was it, a 737? From the time it goes back to even the wings, what is that, probably 80 feet? If that far, do you realize how fast that's going to be?
500 miles an hour.
Doing 500 miles an hour? That's going to... How many frames in a camera is that going to be? If you're running 25 frames a second, it's going to look like it's instantaneous.
Exactly my point, exactly, because it only proves that cameras back then were shitty. And we didn't have phantom cameras that were watching this thing where we expect to see this like slow motion where we see every little thing. Like if you have a balloon inside another balloon and you pop them, you'll see only one balloon pop, but on a phantom camera that shows maybe 1,000 frames a second or more, you'll see the first one get popped and then the second one get popped. But we don't see that.
Cameras in 2001 were not so shitty that you could not see something penetrate a wall and then have to see the hole appear 5 seconds
At 500 miles an hour, I think that a camera at that resolution would not be able to get it that
down.
well.
If it's all windows, you'd see cracks in the glass. Like there would be a response. The building wouldn't still be so sad. And again, to his earlier point, you'd see reflections of the other buildings around it. You'd see the reflection of the airplane as it approached the building. It's all windows. There would be some kind of reflection of the fucking sun
and all
or something. But there's
sounds like you're
I'm kind of getting on board with
that. He's switching over.
But it's like it's all just blank. There's no reflection of anything. And if it's a building of nothing but windows, you'd have sun glares or something.
There's too much to write off. There's people that are supposedly taking videos from the same building, okay? Videographers, like, say one's on the 40th floor of this adjacent building, one's on the 38th floor of this adjacent building. So similar perspectives, right? And they're showing the collapse of the building, so you know it's the exact same time of the day because the collapse only took 10 seconds or so, as we know, right? And in one shot, the building will be completely in the shade. In the other person's video, it's completely in sunlight. It just doesn't match because it's fabricated evidence.
Brian, you know what, man? You are the most competent 9/11
absolutely
truther that we've ever come across.
Maybe we need to change the topic of today's episode. Just make it a 9/11 episode. That's
and
fucking
you know
awesome.
what? I think you made a truther out of Nick Ryder over here. And I think we should
I'm glad to hear that.
I think we should.
If you guys believe what I'm saying right now, you'd be crazy. But I would love for you guys to check out my 9/11 work and maybe listen to one of my radio shows. I have like 100 of them, but that one link I told you guys that has all the gifs and everything. There's a show that we just did because I've been exposing this hoax since 2010. But there's a show that me and my partner just did a few months ago for all the flat Earth people that hadn't seen 9/11 in this light yet, and we kind of break it all down, and we will walk you through all that evidence, and the evidence it's astounding. There are obituaries that are created before 9/11, and they're telling you what flight the people died on. You can't write that off with a bad frame rate of a camera.
Man, you're on to fucking something, dude. You are on to something. So, Brian, let's move on from here, man. 9/11, man, that's a big old fucking steak to chew on there. But let's get into flat Earth. We didn't really properly introduce ourselves to you, man. That's me. I'm Los. I'm Carlos. I'm the one that interacted with you to get you on here. And then you've got Nick Ryder to my left. He's the passion. And then to my left is going to be Brandon, the hard hat, and Mitchell. That's on your left. On my right. There you go. And then Nick's on my left.
Directions are hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There's only two.
I'm excited, dude. I'm excited to have someone that knows what they're talking about. Finally, we've had flat earthers on. I had originally back in episode 10, I think I interviewed David Weiss, and I wasn't too versed on my flat Earth, and he told us a lot about it, which was great. And so ever since then, we've been talking about it. We are definitely not believers of the flat Earth. We have our own proofs against the proofs that are presented. Yep. But what brought you initially to the flat Earth theory, And then what do you consider
Sure.
credible information?
What brought me to the flat Earth theory was after 9/11, and then after these other events, such as Gabby Giffords, Sandy Hook, all these
totally
events that I
cuss up a
all
storm,
these
sir.
other events that I view as hoaxes. I know you guys might have mixed opinions on some of those. I decided to take a look at the moon landings because moon landing is kind of like, even though it's not accepted, it's almost like a mainstream conspiracy. Everybody's heard of it growing up.
Right.
So in 2012, I decided to take a look at the moon landing with the eyes that I now have, to look for video fakery, to look for wire harnesses, green screens, Hollywood techniques, and things like this. And it was all over the Apollo footage, from shadow issues to seeing them literally being picked up on wire harnesses, to the impossibility of the equipment that they say they used to get up there. So after looking into Apollo, which really, it took me about a weekend to be convinced. And I'm not saying I researched it for a weekend. I looked at it for years. But after the first weekend of digging into Apollo, I mean, I knew that it was fake. So then I started looking into satellites, the ISS, pretty much anything else space related. I wasn't looking at flat Earth yet, but then in 2014, I stumbled across a video. It was about the plane routes in the southern hemisphere and how they're all wrong, and not only that, how they were all disappearing off GPS. So I started researching that a lot because it didn't really make any sense to me. Well, why would these planes disappear off GPS? And then if you look at the flights in the southern hemisphere, and this is before I even knew what the flat Earth was. I mean, you hear it as a little kid or whatever, but that the layovers aren't making any sense. Flights that are leaving, say, South America, like Santiago, Chile, to get to Sydney, Australia, they're making detours and layovers up in Dubai. They're making detours in London, New York City.
Well, you know why
4,000 miles.
You know why they're doing that though, right? Yeah, they got to make more money. They're picking up more people to make more money.
I've flown from Kansas
So
to Alabama and had a layover in Denver.
Do you think they would waste $8,000 in jet fuel to pick up a few more passengers rather than just schedule less flights?
They will make that up in the passengers.
No,
they
because
pick
there are
up.
already enough people just going straight to London or straight to Dubai, and they're piggybacking on that and then putting on another one. Like I've had layovers that make no goddamn sense. Granted, on a much smaller scale because it was all in the United States, but you're just piggybacking off of flights that already exist.
Yes, but now you'll notice that it's not just, I'm not talking about a layover here and there. It's every time. You can't get a direct flight from those distances.
Well, how many people are flying directly on a regular basis from like South America to Sydney? Like, is that
probably not much?
Yeah, probably not much. So there's not much.
That's why they do that.
But wouldn't it make more sense to go the other direction? From South America, would it make more sense to go west? And skip going east and happen to lay over in London?
South America to Sydney or Sydney to South America, those non-stop flights do not exist. Mm-hmm. They don't let you take those flights because it's too far. On a flat Earth, not on a globe, on a flat Earth, the southern hemisphere is the outer ring.
Right,
so that flight that would normally be like 12 hours or whatever it is now like 16 hours, and the plane doesn't have the fuel capacity to even make it that far. So what they'll do is, and they literally will hide all the flights in the southern hemisphere so people aren't catching on to their trick. So then I started to look, that's when I started to really look more into the flat Earth. Now, there's a million ways I could go with the flat Earth, but I'll make one point real quick, and then I'd like you guys to actually tell me what you think proves the globe, and I'll tell you why it's mistaken.
That'd be great.
In my opinion, okay? Because I know you probably have some things that slam the flat Earth shut, right?
Yeah, I might.
Let me ask you this, right?
Sure.
They say the Earth spins at 1,038 miles per hour at the equator, okay?
Right.
So that would mean west to east, the Earth is spinning, we'll say 1,000. It's spinning 1,000 miles an hour. If I'm flying from Los Angeles, say I'm flying from Boston to Los Angeles, the ground is going to be racing at me at 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm doing 500 miles an hour towards it. How is my return flight going to be the same amount of time when I'm doing 500 and the Earth is doing 1,000 miles away from me?
When I've flown out to Hawaii from LA, it took 8 hours.
Yep.
The flight back took like 6.5.
Yeah, but they're still similar. They're not vastly different. Like one's not an hour and a half, and one's not 5 hours.
And also, Brian, you have to consider that when
that has to do with wind currents and stuff.
when
it's slightly different by an hour or so.
So Brian, when you got to consider, like when you hear 1,000 miles an hour, like that's like from like an observer that's in space. Now for us, that means nothing. It's zero to us. Now if you consider 1,000 miles an hour, you know that the Earth spins like once every day, and that one spin.
How's it zero? How can it be zero to us? If you're
To
standing on
us,
a ball,
it's
right?
the same way when you're in a car and you don't feel very much. The only thing you feel is the decrease in the acceleration.
You feel
That's
when
we
the speed
feel it.
changes, but when you're going along.
Your car's enclosed. Your car has a roof on it.
Okay, the Earth still has a very, very large, thick atmosphere that contains everything. That's why clouds travel.
Yeah, it's not just like.
Okay, so are we saying then the atmosphere moves with the Earth? Is that what we're saying?
Well, it's a sort of a, if you want to call it a dome, but it's not a physical dome. It's something made of gases and things that are compressed and held together by gravity.
Okay, let's say gravity is what's holding it on, and it's moving with the Earth, and it's not a physical dome. It's the layers of gases of atmosphere, or whatever we want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get back to the Earth spinning. And now you're not standing on the ground. You're in an airplane. Say the Earth is spinning west to east 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm flying an airplane north to south, and I'm going to land on a north-south runway, and the ground is coming 1,000 miles an hour at me sideways.
It's
How am I
not,
gonna
though.
land that
No,
plane?
no, it's not. It's not. That's
not.
You know when
I
you.
know it's not because it's stationary and it's not moving.
No, you think that it's moving 1,000 miles an hour. Remember, it rotates one time a day. That one rotation is 1,000 miles an hour all the way around for several hours, 24 hours it happens. But to an outside observer, it happens.
Because the circumference of the Earth is 24,901 miles. That's 1,038 miles per hour every hour to make up that 24,000.
Well, either
it's not 1,000 split up over a day. It's 1,000 miles per hour every
No,
hour.
yeah, I'm not trying to say it's like one. It's like that's happening, but I'm saying that spin 1,000 miles. When you're in orbit, that's 1,000 miles. It's the same as like when you're driving, down the freeway. Let's say you're going 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and you look at the moon or maybe let's say the clouds. Let's say they're closer. They don't move as fast away from you like the stuff that's closer to you because it's further away.
That mean they just appear to not move as fast. They're still moving at same speed.
Exactly, and you're going so far,
and you get into weird stuff with the parallax angles and stuff like that. But that's I got you.
You get what I'm
saying? So parallax. Speaking of you brought up parallax. You know what parallax is in relation to the stars, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yes.
So parallax would be, over the course of time, the stars would appear to move because.
In relation to where you're standing,
Yes, but how come for thousands and thousands of years people have been able to navigate using the same stars, and the stars they do move, during the year, but how come every year they're back in the same spot and there is no parallax?
Well, because it takes us a year to get around the sun, and that's when we get back to it.
When you're talking about how many billions of years old things are, 1,000 years is...
Yeah, all the stars have changed by then. The northern star's not the same as it was before.
He's saying, why is it still the same?
No, I'm saying, why is it still the same? And you're saying because it takes a year to go
they're
around
so
or whatever,
far
but
away,
we're not just moving in
these
a
stars.
Circle.
Right.
NASA says we're moving in a spiral, and we're moving 2.3 million miles. Our galaxy is moving 2.3 million miles in a straight direction as we revolve around.
I don't think
the
you're
sun
understanding the scope of things. Like, on a cosmic scale,
which is huge.
That means nothing. That's like us seeing the clouds.
Why nothing? How can you just write it off? They're not in our galaxy.
It's not writing it off.
Okay, no, what I'm saying is they're so far away that we don't notice them moving. Just the same way when you're in your car, you don't notice the clouds moving sometimes, or the moon, or whatever.
And
like,
also,
you're so far away from it.
But also remember, we're
not so far away.
Hold up a second.
But they are,
Brian. They're far away, but we're also moving. We're an ever expanding universe, so they're not staying in place either. They're not going to get any bigger. They're going to stay, and we're expanding with them.
If they're not moving the same similar direction as us, How are they in the same spot every year?
Because they're that far away.
Because we're coming back to that same spot every year?
We're coming back to that same spot, and they're that far away that it seems that way. Just like when we're driving and you see the moon,
light, by the
moon stays in the same place.
But we're not coming back to the same spot. What you're saying is not what NASA tells you. That is not what the story is. The story is you even said we're an ever-expanding universe, and our galaxy and our solar system is moving millions of miles and never coming back to the same spot. Those stars are not in our galaxy, so how did they stay lined up?
They're moving with us. They're going. They're expanding.
Not the entire universe is what he's saying. But things outside of us.
Hold up a second. But
that's not their story.
The stars that we see are from the Milky Way galaxy, which is going into some sort of black hole. It seems like you've seen it before. It's this big old thing that.
That's true. The stars we see are in our same galaxy that is moving with us.
With the naked eye, that they've used for navigation, are the stars in our galaxy.
And they're rotating with us into the same Milky Way galaxy. That's why we see the same stars, because they're in the same galaxy that we're in, which is moving the same direction. Boom. So tell me.
I have to disagree with that.
That's fine. We can agree to disagree, my man. That's all. That's what we're all here about. Agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you told us you don't believe in satellites or the ISS or any of the things that they do. Nope. So you're not a fan of the SpaceX and the Roadster they threw up there.
Well, hang on. I want to bring up the ISS. So a couple months ago,
Go ahead.
it was visible coming, passing over here in Austin, and I visibly now, I can't say yes that was the ISS because I'm having to rely. Yes, but I did see something streak across the sky. It was obviously not a falling star. Like I've seen those. Like, so I just want to hear from you what was it?
Sure. One last thing. I just want to make one more point though. Remember how you did say, but because those stars, they seem to be back with us every year because they're in our galaxy. They're in the Milky Way.
Mm-hmm.
They are not in the Milky Way. The North Star is in a completely different galaxy. It's in the Ursa Minor galaxy.
Ooh.
Just so you know, I'm just correcting you on that. Those stars are not in our galaxy, and they are not moving the same direction as us.
Well, you're illuminating something I did not know about.
But is it in the same position relative to us?
Not if
because
North Star, yes, it's actually directly above the North Pole all the time, and it never moves.
Well, they say in an X amount of years that it's going to be a different star.
And it's never moved. Yeah, they're gonna tell you in 7,000 years it's gonna be another star.
Yeah, you're right. Because
we'll
never
know.
We'll never know. I mean, you make a great fucking point there. You make a great goddamn point.
And back to
put a message in a
bottle.
bottle.
About the ISS, this is very easy. So if you're gonna run a deception on somebody, you're gonna go through all the ends. You're gonna try and do what you can. Now, if I go on TV and tell you, okay, here's a SpaceX rocket launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I show you something take off into the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell you it's going to be over your city, right?
Sure.
And you can get an application. You can get an application on your phone that tells you when it's flying overhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I fly a high altitude airplane above, and you see an airplane fly above. You can't tell if it's an ISS or an airplane. How does that prove that that's an international space?
I could very much tell it was not an airplane, though. I'm a little more familiar with airplanes than the regular person. So, I mean, I could definitely verify it was not an airplane. So what else could it have been?
What about people with telescopes, though? Like
I've seen.
I know you can't necessarily see out into space, see ISS with like an average backyard telescope, but you could definitely say that's not an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Huh?
Go ahead.
So telescopes is a good point because telescopes aren't. First of all, they're not nearly as powerful as we're told. We have commercial cameras now that are just as strong as telescopes, so they're not seeing into the depths of space. And I'm not saying
no, not a household one. Definitely not into space for sure.
We have pictures of. Okay, so not a household one. So again, we're gonna go by something we can't test. Observe or repeat ourselves. We have to take science's word for it. Now the ISS. Now let me get more into the ISS because when you said it flew over your city and this and that, there have been many people that have studied the ISS. Every time the ISS supposedly does a live stream and that they're supposedly flying over a city, they will tell you, for instance, okay, we're flying over Colorado, and when they on that day in Colorado, for instance, it'll be a clear sunny day, right? But on the ISS footage, when it shows it flying over Colorado, it's completely cloudy, and you can't make out the distinction of anything. It's totally fabricated footage. There is nobody on an ISS.
Well, wait a minute, Brian. I'm looking right here. I looked up ISS at the moon, and I'm seeing a lot of amateur pictures of people that have photographed the moon with their look. They have this camera. What's that camera called there? It's a DSLR. It's a D7000 DSLR at the prime focus, and I'm clearly seeing. So are these amateur photos faked as well?
I don't have the photos in front of me that you're speaking of, but
okay.
If there's a picture of an ISS floating in front of the moon, yes. And let me make a point on that, right?
Go ahead.
People photograph the moon all the time, right? For years. Flat earthers or not, people in astronomy or not, just people like to take pictures of the moon. It's cool, right?
Absolutely, it's bitchin'.
We're told there's about 20,000 satellites orbiting the Earth. We can argue the number. You can say 10,000. You can say 15,000.
There's a lot up there.
We're told there's thousands and thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth, right?
Right. You're right.
Show me one picture when you've seen satellites passing in front of the moon.
And I'm glad you mentioned this, because when you look at, let's say you look at the ISS feed and it's looking down at the Earth, do you see cars on the Earth? Because that's about as big as they are.
You do not see cars because that's too far, but you know what else you don't see? You don't see any airplanes. Where's the 7,000 airplanes that are flying above the Earth when you're looking at the ISS footage?
Nice point. Great point there.
There's none. And not only that, when you look at it more, you'll notice that the images that they use of Earth, but there's videos of the Earth where for a long time they didn't even have it rotate at all, and they didn't have the clouds move, okay?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
They got caught by using photoshopped clouds, like stamped in different locations, and you could tell they were the same clouds. So their graphic artist actually came on TV in his own words to try and gatekeep the information. He had to admit the picture was altered. He wasn't going to say it was a completely fabricated picture. This is what he said. He said, "Oh, well, the Earth's too big, so we have to take ribbons of imagery, stitch them together, so it is photoshopped, but it has to be."
Yes, well, that's right.
Yeah, does that not make sense?
So how do we have pictures of planets that are millions of miles away? Why can't we turn one of those things around and take a picture of Earth?
Because they're millions of miles away, and if you're taking pictures from like the ISS or even a space station, you might be 150 miles up, right?
Okay,
so in order to get
the one they took a year ago, 1,000,000 miles away with the Japanese Himurawi satellite, and it was supposed to be exactly 1,000,000 miles away, and you could see the whole Earth.
And that's exactly
fake ass CGI moon.
See, that's the thing. So there's two satellites out there that will show you live images of the ball Earth. And the first one is the Himahari 8, which is still up there, and it hovers over the Japan and the Asias right there. It stays in that orbit, and it gives you a real live picture every 10 minutes. You'll get a brand new one every 10 minutes.
Have you watched and you believe that that's real?
Well, why would they lie? Because first of all, Japanese would love to fucking get back at us for fucking bombing the shit out of them in World War II.
You watched it?
Yeah, I'm watching it. We're watching it right now, actually. We have it on the big screen here.
You think that gray lifeless rock that's passing in front of it is really the moon?
Well, we're not. The moon's not passing in front of it at the moment, but we're getting pictures of it.
And when you watch it, if you use what they tell you that the sun is what lights up the Earth, right?
Right.
So if you're seeing the moon pass in front of the Earth and the Earth is lit and the sun is behind the moon, how is the backside of the moon dark? It should be lit because the sun's behind it. The whole picture's wrong. It makes no sense.
I haven't seen it. I can't speak to it. So what do you have to say about the Epic satellite? I guess it's NASA, so I know what you're going to say. But there's an Epic satellite that's out there that's doing the same thing. It's taken a full live picture of the Earth in real time. Sort of real time, but we get a full blasted picture of it. Now we're spinning the globe right now, and it looks pretty good to me. I mean, you could say CGI. You can't prove that it's not CGI. Everything's sort of computer-generated images these days anyways, but these are live pictures from a satellite that they're bringing to us, and you're going to say it's CGI, and we're going to argue against it. There's really – it's kind of a no man's land, I guess. We can go back and forth all day, but let me ask you about eclipses. We can predict them through the heliocentric model.
Yes, sure.
What is what are eclipses then?
Good point. And when did the heliocentric model become very, very popularized?
Well, as soon as it was something that came out to be, like Galileo, and we're talking about 500, 600 years ago, it was proved to be.
Exactly. No, exactly. You're right. And so the heliocentric model, it was mentioned before, but around the time of Columbus, Galileo, 1500, around there, right? That's when it became very popularized.
Mm-hmm.
But so if your point is, okay, we can predict eclipses, but you also know that they were predicting eclipses accurately for thousands of years before that, when there was no heliocentric model. So what does that tell you?
People still knew, like, the discovery and the measure of the circumference of the Earth was done thousands BC. Like, it's been something that has been known.
To me, it tells me they were predicting eclipses, and then they just kept predicting them, but credit it to the fact that the Earth is a ball now.
Okay, but the Earth, the Earth being a ball isn't something that just came about 500 years ago. Like, that's something
I know.
Right.
When was it mostly popularized? Yeah, supposedly Aristophanes supposedly proved it in 200 BC, but that is also a flawed experiment.
Yes, because I know the
argument. He was pretty spot on.
But yeah, however, you have to change. You have to change where the sun's position is to prove that, and that's you can't prove that the sun's that far away. And if you use trigonometry, you can absolutely prove how far away the sun is. But that trigonometry doesn't work the same. So that math is the only thing that changes is the sun has to be closer. But you can't prove the sun is closer unless you say you
can't prove it's far. How can you prove it's far? How can
through
you
trigonometry? Through trigonometry and the moon phases, you can use the angles at where they're at.
The moon phases. So the moon phases aren't caused by the sun, though, like we're told. If the moon phases were caused by the sun, okay, you say they are.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the moon phases are caused by the sun. Why? Because the moon reflects the sun's light. Is that why?
It does. Yeah, it does receive the light, and that's what we see.
So how do I see moons sometimes in the daytime on the same side of the sky that aren't full moons?
This is great. I love this. When I get off of work, I keep up with the moon phases a lot, and when it's in the area that I drive home, I've been keeping my eye on it, where it goes, what it does, and it's out all the time during the day, especially when it's a more fuller day. A fuller phase, when it's past the first quarter, and when it gets closer to the full.
That's not always the case, is it? That's not always.
It's not always the case, but it is. No, it's always gonna. It's never gonna be like a little. Sometimes it is a crescent, but that is a bright light coming through, and the sky is blue only because the atmosphere can accept the blue rays and everything, and that's also why we see red when we have blood moon, because the red is the last light on the spectrum. It's infrared, and it comes out. It's just different types of lights that happen due to the perspective of where the sun is, and these things wouldn't happen. If the sun was only 33,000 miles in the sky or whatever it's supposed to be in flat Earth.
But that still doesn't answer the question of if the sun is what is illuminating the moon, and the moon is on the same side of the sky as the sun as it is some days, how is the moon not fully illuminated?
Okay, and think about this. I think it comes down to scale, okay? Like take find a lamp, take the shade off, and then like turn it on, but put your hand around like one side of it and turn it on. Like the back of your hand is still, it's not going to be pitch black. There's still going to be light just from like bouncing around, coming back.
But there's nothing, but your hand's in the way. There's nothing blocking the sunlight going to the moon. Allegedly.
But it's still being lit.
There's not even an atmosphere.
But it's something that's bright in color is still going to reflect light. Mm-hmm. Like that's why we see the other planets. They're reflecting the light that's received to them, and it's like 30 times away from us. Well, it's its own. Like if I was to take the moon is a quarter the size of Earth, and it's 30 times away of that size away from Earth. It's like a huge scale. Every time we see pictures, it's like the moon's is so close to the Earth, but it is really, really far away. And for the Earth to block the moon's light, which is, I think is what he's getting at, would be very difficult. That's why there is that one little separate time where we have the lunar eclipse. That's when that happens,
No, what he's saying is if the sun's on this side, the moon's on this side, and we see the moon because the sunlight is shooting over and bouncing off the moon, or at least illuminating the moon, how is it that you can see it in the daytime, which means it's on the same side of the Earth?
Okay, I see what he's saying. So now I have to ask, is it a full moon or is it a very crescent moon and you only see like a first quarter?
A crescent moon. If it was a full moon, I wouldn't have a problem with this argument.
Exactly.
The sun would be lighting the moon, but the sun's supposedly lighting the moon, as you say. Then how is it not a full moon when they're up in the sky next to each other? There is no Earth in between causing the shadow to make the crescent on the moon. That's not what's making the crescent. But there is a crescent on the moon, and I'm looking at the sun and the moon, and they're on the same side. Another point too about the reflection of the light. Okay, you guys would agree that the sun emits hot light. The light is hot?
Mm-hmm. The sun's light, yes.
Okay. Now, when I say this, you're going to be like, oh, well, it's nighttime.
I know where you're going at with this. Go ahead.
How come the moon emits cold light?
The moon doesn't emit light.
Hold up a second.
It's just illuminated. It's not giving off any light. It's just being illuminated. Light is being shown on it.
So I watched this experiment where somebody was they were outside and they had 2 thermometers and they had a shoebox and they go, okay, this shoebox is going to cover up one of the thermometers and then the other one's going to be in the moonlight and we're gonna see what the difference was. So the one that was in the moonlight, which was in the box, got colder by less than a degree. Was about 0.7 of degree. And that was his definite proof that the moonlight was colder.
Because it's not its own light. It's just a rock being illuminated. It's not like a glowing thing giving off any light at all.
Here's the thing. No, but you're missing the point. Here's the point, okay? I understand that. Let's just make up numbers. Let's say the sun, obviously it'd be way hotter, but let's say 100 degrees for an even number. Let's say 100 degrees of the sun hits the moon, okay? Mm-hmm. Then the moonlight comes down here. It's not going to be 100 degrees, obviously, okay? Because it's going to lose temperature on the way down, whatever. It's not going to be the same as when it bounced off the sun. But what I'm telling you is it has opposite properties. It's actually a cooling light. So in the daytime, let's say you're out in the sun and it's 90 degrees, okay? And then you go in the shade, it's going to be cooler. It's going to be 80 degrees, right? Now, if you're standing in the moonlight, we can call it a full moon if you want, okay? We can call it a full moon. And let's say it's 60 degrees. And then you get out of that moonlight, which is still a light. It's a light shining on you. You get out of the moonlight and step into the shade. How much colder do you think it's going to get?
It doesn't. At least not noticeably that I remember.
Not only noticeably, the temperature is going to rise by as much as 13 degrees because it's emitting its own light. It's a cold light.
13 degrees.
I don't know that I've ever noticed.
Have you personally ever experienced that?
Have you done the experiments to prove this?
I have not. No, I have not done that experiment yet, but I will be soon. I've seen it done many times.
But I mean, 13 degrees though.
That's a drastic
change. That is like there would.
It is drastic. That should make you think about it and be like, if that's true, that's fucking crazy.
So hold up a second. So I was mistaken when I was trying to explain this earlier. So this guy was trying to prove that the moonlight would make things cooler. So he had a shoebox which he put a thermometer in, which was shielded from the moonlight, and he had the other one, and he used his laser thermometer. No, he had these 2 thermometers. He didn't have the laser one. Excuse me. But he was able to show that the one that was out in the moonlight was colder than the other one that was in the shoebox. Showing.
But that's not a good test. That's not a conclusive test because then you could say the shoebox contained heat, and that's why it's hotter because it had a lid on it. That's a bad experiment.
Yeah, it is a bad experiment.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay, fine. Fair enough.
Say that's a flawed experiment. One more time, I'll just say it real quick. You're in the sun. And it's 90 degrees. You step in the shade, and it's 80 degrees because it's in the shade. It's cooler, right? Okay. Now, if the moon is bouncing the sun's light, which is what we're told it does, so it has the properties of the sun's light, so that moonlight reaches us. I'm not saying it's 90 degrees. We can call it 50 degrees. We can call it 60. Let's say it's 50 degrees. Say it's a full moon. You're directly in the moonlight. It's 50 degrees. Now you're going to get out of that light that's illuminating you, whether it's a light bulb in your house or the sun. If you get out of a light and you go into the complete shade, it should get cooler. Whether it's a degree, whether it's not, very really noticeable, or whether it's, 10 degrees like the sun, your temperature is going to rise by as much as 13 degrees because the moon emits a cold light. It's the
I have
opposite
never
of the sun.
ever
noticed
such a thing.
I will disagree on that, but that's what we're here about.
Nobody notices. Nobody notices until you check it out, but it's true.
So, when it comes to NASA, you're not a fan, obviously. But they've invented and they have different technologies that we use every single day. Would you not accept that if that was something that they invented, or that it was a ripoff of a technology they invented? That sort of lends.
No. I mean, if they invented something on the ground, like their engineers made something that benefited humankind on the ground, would I automatically doubt it? No.
All right.
Why would I?
Because they are.
Here's one more thing. Let me make a point about NASA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of this leads back to NASA, and one of the hardest things for people is, you think all these people are lying, or how could all these people keep a secret, blah blah blah. Do you realize that you could be the person that builds the goddamn rocket to go to the moon, and you could still not be in on the hoax? Like, for instance, here's an example I like to use of myself personally, right? Let's say I called you. I don't know where you guys are. Let's pretend you're in California, right?
All right.
It doesn't matter where you are. Let's say I call you guys and say, hey, I have a flying car. I'm in Boston right now. My car does 3,000 miles an hour. So I'm going to be in 4,000, however far California is. My car does 3,000 miles an hour. I'm going to fly my car to California. I'm going to be there in an hour, okay? It's going to take me a half a tank of gas because I get 6,000 miles for every tank of gas that I have when I get there. Not only that, listen, I'm going to send you video of the construction of my car. I'm going to Skype you with me sitting in the driver's seat, and then I'm going to call you when I get to California. Does that really mean I have a flying car that does 3,000 miles an hour?
No.
Absolutely not. And that's the same shit NASA does. You use compartmentalization. Say you have a guy that builds a rocket, another guy works on the launch pad, another guy works on
that's
the
how they do it.
That is exactly how they do it, and all they have to do is say you really build a rocket, and they have tons of funding. We give them $53 million every day, so they do build shit and just ditch it in the ocean. It's not like they don't build anything. So let's say I'm the guy that builds the rocket, right? Do you think I'm going to Cape Canaveral? No, I'm probably working in JPL. I'm working wherever I am. That's going to go over to the launch site, and then it's going to get launched, okay? And then when it gets launched, if you ever watch a rocket launch, watch them. They don't even go straight up. They arc out and they disappear over
They
the
have
ocean.
to, though. You have to understand that's how that has to happen so that they can escape the atmosphere.
Why? Because it's got to go around the curve of the Earth or the escape velocity. There's going to be an excuse for everything.
But even if even if it went straight up, you would eventually see a curve of it because of the perspective of things. And we're on a ball. If it went straight up and you were sitting there, eventually you'll see it curve out. Like if you watch someone do let's say it's a chemtrail, right? And they spray across and it's supposed to be a straight line. Different angles will see a big curve because of the Earth that it's on, and it's moving along with the atmosphere and the clouds and the bullshit.
Well, you told me earlier that the Earth's moving so slow we don't notice it. So how now all of a sudden it's moving so fast that if you shoot a rocket straight up, it's going to look curved?
No. I've never said that it's moving so
just a matter of
fast.
Perspective.
But it's a matter of perspective, is what I'm saying.
The reason the Earth looks flat to you standing on the surface is because you're so small. Your perspective gives it a flat view, like an ant on a fucking basketball.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
It's not going to see that's a curved thing it's on.
Not even an ant, dude. A fucking ant's turd.
The escape velocity is like 17,000 miles an hour. Now, next time you watch a rocket launch, watch what happens. None of the cameras are facing forward as they go through the atmosphere. And what they'll do, they'll show a launch. Sure, there's people at the launch that see something go up and they all cheer. They don't know where the rocket goes. It goes right off the east coast of the United States.
Brian, let's be honest. If there was a camera facing the front, you guys would still deny that was fucking real. I mean, let's be honest. They can give you as many fucking views as you guys want. A 3D fucking view.
Why don't they just do it then? Cameras are like $100.
Because they have nothing to prove to flat earthers. They have nothing to prove to you guys.
Yes, they do. We pay for it. We pay for their space
program. You know what? Yes, you guys do. But you guys are about a 0.001% of the whole entire people that actually paid for NASA and want that kind of stuff, want the technology.
It's a shame that other people will just believe them on face value. we should be able to ask these questions.
You're right.
It's very suspicious. It's very suspicious when anytime breaking through the atmosphere would be a very monumental thing for people to watch. People would love to see that.
It was.
You know what?
Yeah, we did it.
No, see, that's the thing is that people don't care about that now.
No.
Remember Apollo 13? They were like,
Yeah.
well, who gives a shit? We've seen it already 5 times. Why do we need to see another fucking Apollo go up, right? But they did it anyways, and then the news didn't even come out till after they were like, oh, these guys are fucked. We might lose some guys in space.
Yeah.
And that's when the news actually came out. Like,
Okay, so then why do they even show us a camera when they're through the atmosphere? What's the point if nobody gives a damn?
because there's still
Why
people
do they-
that do give a
There's a
damn.
small percentage of people that
So
do.
then why make the camera cut? Why do they have to cut the camera?
Well, it's
away
not.
as
Maybe
go
they
through
didn't
the
cut it on
atmosphere? It comes
purpose.
down
I
to a
mean,
CGI image.
there are disconnects that happen. They are moving. They are very far away, and to trying to transmit such things like that, you're going to have to expect some sort of turbulence in between. We haven't perfected the images where like you're gonna say, oh, you see
But
glitches.
President Nixon can call them on a landline in the 60s from 237,000 miles away with no delay. But we're supposed to believe our cameras can't capture
Wait a minute, who said there
Wait.
was no delay on that? I'm sure there was like a fucking at least a minute delay. But when they're getting it right now, listen, you're getting a 2 or 3 second delay from us, and we're still able to communicate very well. Imagine that times more. You're only hearing what you're getting from us, but when we do speak, you start to get that delay that happens because we're coming in a couple seconds later than you think. This is happening right now.
You're assuming there's a minute delay on that phone call. Go listen to the phone call. There is no delay.
Well, you know what?
Not
I have
if it
I
just
have to.
recorded one side of it.
He's right. I mean, yeah. Well, if you're recording one side, you're going to hear that. You're not going to hear that delay that we're talking
It's
about.
going to hear the one side of the conversation.
No, if you listen into the conversation back and forth, you can tell there's no delay. They're having a coherent conversation. And just recently, for instance, what they do now is they fake a 13-second delay to the ISS, and they forgot about it one time. Chris Hadfield and another astronaut who was allegedly on the ground, and he was allegedly on the ISS, they sang a friggin' duet with a guitar from the space station while the other one was on the ground singing, and they did it in sync with no delay to a bunch of school children.
Now
They
here,
can't get the story straight.
now, you know what?
Well,
you
hang
have
on,
to understand.
because-
You have to understand how audio works, though. Too. I mean, I try to do this all the time with what I'm doing here. I try to make something sync up, and like I can. Once you understand where that is, you can start at the same time. And how do you know that they knew how long that sync is? And one person would start singing, and the other person would take off his headphones so he's not jamming up, and just start singing it at that time to experiment, maybe
Because
when
did it
they
on an
match up.
allegedly live video. It wasn't post-edit, brother. They did it on an allegedly live
No,
video.
you do this
after
stuff live.
many years
That's what I'm saying. You would do this kind of thing live because they are experimenting, and why wouldn't they try to experiment with delays and how that works?
Okay, so why was there no delay this one time, but there was every other time? But when they want to sing a duet, there's
Let's
no delay.
cherry pick one little instance, and like we'll be fine with that, But all these other evidences are like nothing compared to this one cherry pick you got. Like, come on, man.
Well,
like,
as far as like radio delays and
man,
stuff like
it's not
that,
about cherry picking. It's about when they make a mistake, and I'm pointing it out. It's not about cherry
but
picking.
if we're paying them billions of dollars to do this, why would they even fuck up in the first place? Is what I'm trying to even figure out
we
here.
keep giving them billions of dollars.
You're
Okay,
right. We just
if
keep
they
giving them.
if they came out and said, "Hey guys, we went to space. Guess what? The Earth is flat." They would still get billions of dollars to go out and continue exploring space.
Right.
They're exploring fucking space.
Well, wait. Space doesn't. Do you believe that there's space?
Okay, I'm just saying, like, they're not there to prove the Earth is round. They're there to explore what exists outside of Earth. So the shape of the Earth doesn't fucking matter. Anyway,
Okay, but
especially
the
if
whole thing-
hang on, especially if for thousands of years, ever since ancient Greece discovered, or the guy put the 2 sticks in the ground and measured the shadows and found out the fucking curvature of the Earth, and so he started thinking it was round. If they went up and decided or saw, holy shit, it's actually flat. Wouldn't that be a huge deal to break, and that would give even more funding to go and explore this more? Like the fact that this lie is perpetuating for money.
Science, it would discredit all the
Okay, but
educational institutions that they have.
you're
built that
saying,
would
like,
not help the cause.
NASA isn't getting funding purely to perpetuate the lie of the globe Earth. The globe Earth existed before NASA, and NASA isn't existing to examine the shape of the Earth. It's supposed to examine what's outside of the Earth. So the fact that they only get funding to perpetuate the lie is absurd. I don't get that at all. Like, they could just easily say, "Hey, no, we've been up here. We see that it's flat, and it's flat now, and so let's go on with that because here's their fucking proof."
Okay, let's go with that. So if they did that, then what happens when I turn around and say, "So what's with all the pictures of the ball Earth that you've been showing us?"
Okay, but if
so
they
why
know,
should we believe you now?
I'm saying if they did this since day one when they first went up into space and saw that it was flat, then they wouldn't have given us ball Earth pictures. They would have just said,
You're talking about a hypothetical that's...
I know. I'm saying, my point is...
Take it easy.
There's no reason for them to have lied about it. They could have just said, "Hey, guys, we've been fucking wrong. It's actually flat." And guess what? We would still say, keep going up there and exploring.
You make a great point there.
There's no reason to lie about it. What about all the people that are obsessed with outer space? They want to give money so they can do space exploration.
Okay, so again, they're going out into space. So what's the difference if the Earth is round or flat if they're going out into space?
But they're not going into space. You're missing my point. They're not going. They're not going into space.
Okay, so they can't still keep up the space lie, whether it's flat or round or anything? Like, the two don't have anything to do with each other, so why are they perpetuating this lie that doesn't serve their purpose?
You brought it up about the space. They're going to space, but they're not going to space.
No.
They're shooting rockets several thousand feet up in the air, ditching them in the ocean, and giving you CGI graphics, and they're giving you they're doing spacewalks in underwater.
But hold up, Brian. But you say everything is CGI, but the only thing they admit to doing CGI is the big blue marble. That's the
composite.
That's the only thing that they really admitted. But
I never said they're going to admit it all. I'm saying that's the one thing they had. Do you know what gatekeeping is?
Yeah, I do. Someone that holds a key to the gate.
They had to admit that was CGI as a gatekeeping tactic because they were cloned.
All right, he's getting deep in it.
Clouds.
All right.
They were cloned and pasted clouds that were used that everybody pointed out, hey, this is Photoshop. So at that point, they had to come out and admit that there was Photoshop done on that picture. But to gatekeep, they said, oh, we had to Photoshop the picture because the telescopes aren't far enough away, so we couldn't take a picture of the whole Earth, so we had to cut it up into ribbons and stitch it together with Photoshop. That's the gatekeeping
Well,
tactic.
to get a full shot, but what about the ones that are just like a section or like a bit that just show curvature?
Do you know how much terabytes it takes to for one pass and all the information that one pass of the Earth happens? Like when they put it all together, it's terabytes of information which these artists they take from it, and it's like these are real pictures taken from satellites. I mean, you can argue that they're planes or something taking pictures of below, whatever, right? But either way, they're taking these real pictures and putting them together so that we see them, and then they make a ball out of it. But then you have the Himahari 8, you have the Epic satellite from NASA, which are far enough to take a full ball picture of our Earth, and that's still not enough. So let me ask you this real quick: what does your map look like then? What is the flat Earth map look like? Is it close to the AE map? Like I've seen where, and I've seen
yes, very close.
And then how the shoreline that we have in the ball Earth for Antarctica is not going to be as wide as it is for the flat Earth because it encapsulates our flat Earth. So what's the shoreline that you have compared to the shoreline that is actually given from explorers and people that have actually measured the shoreline of Antarctica?
What do I think the shoreline is? You just brought it up. Very similar to what the AE map is. The Antarctica would encircle the whole Earth. Yeah,
but then that would contradict the actual shoreline that has been recorded long before NASA was around. You know, then who's to say? You know what?
Recorded by who?
Well, I mean, there's been projections of our maps for a long time. There's people that are out there. Matter of fact, I just read this article on on the New Yorker of a man that tried to do the same course as one of these guys that crossed over the South Pole. South Pole isn't something that can be found on the flat Earth because South is not
is a perimeter, not a spot.
It's not a spot. It's the whole outside of the Earth.
And you do realize that you're not allowed to fly over the North or South Pole. You're not allowed to explore. You're not allowed to go to the South Pole.
But that's been done numerous times.
But it's been done, but there's no reason to fly over it.
Three people allegedly in history, and it's all been a fraud. And if you actually go and you're gonna say, oh, he's saying it's a fraud. Go and look at the route that they took. They didn't go to the South Pole and come back up on the north. They went down, tagged the ceremonial South Pole, and then they came back up, and they got credited with circumnavigating the Earth. You know that there's millions of airplanes that circumnavigate the Earth every year. Okay, they go east to west, west to east, whatever. There's many shortcuts. Say, for instance, from the bottom of South America to, say, bottom part of Australia or something. Instead of taking that long flight we talked about earlier, 16 hours or whatever, you could fly right over the bottom of the globe 4 or 5 hours and take a shortcut. Those shortcuts are never taken. They're not allowed. You're not allowed to explore there. You know why? Because you can't fly under the globe.
Maybe it's because you're going to see the pole holes from the hollow Earth.
Yeah, you might see the pole holes. Yeah, you might see those pole holes.
I don't know how much you know about the hollow Earth theory, but that's, yeah. They also say you're not allowed to do that because you'll see the giant holes where you can go inside the Earth.
I'm on.
It's pretty amazing.
I googled here list of Antarctica explorations, and there's hundreds of people that have explored.
We have a science station on Antarctica.
Yeah, people are on there right now.
Yes, we do have a science station, and that's a great point. The science station that we have there, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's a great point.
Go ahead.
These are all things I know you haven't looked at, so it's like, okay, because you're just gonna believe it at face value. But if the globe was real and we didn't live on a flat Earth, there would be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica.
There is 24-hour sun in Antarctica.
But there isn't.
No, there totally is.
So how is it that there's definitely 24-hour sun in like the upper parts of Norway and Sweden? I've met and I know people personally from Sweden.
Because that's the North Pole. You're talking about two
okay,
different
but
areas.
the way the sun circles around the equator of the flat Earth map, it would not ever give a 24-hour day of sun in the northern hemisphere.
It only happens because we're on a tilt on a heliocentric model.
In the northern hemisphere, the circle that the sun takes is much, much smaller. It's not the equator's path, so you would get the 24 hours. But in the south, you wouldn't get it because it's so large.
So if the sun is that close to the North Pole, you wouldn't get any sun in the south ever.
That's right.
If it's that close to the north.
You get sun in the south ever. Yes, you would. You just get shorter days.
But how? Like if this.
You just get shorter days.
Okay, so my understanding.
Because it goes around, because the speeds change. So when say it takes 24 hours to do a circle near the North Pole, it still takes 24 hours to do a circle near the South Pole, or what you call the South Pole, the South. It still takes 24 hours, but the speed changes because it takes 24 hours.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding how the Earth or how the sun goes around. I'm seeing like the Earth is a record.
Yes.
And the sun is the needle that floats around. Good. Okay, so if it's floating close to the North Pole or the center, how is it still
small circle, right?
So how is it still shining in the south?
Because the
outer perimeter.
The equator.
It's not at that time. It's not when it's up in the north. No, I'm not saying when it's.
Yeah, because you got the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, but most of the time.
This is how the seasons.
What did I say?
This is how the seasons work.
Cancer corn.
Okay. So the sun's not static. Like it ebbs and flows. It goes in towards the center and then back out towards the perimeter.
Exactly, it does that over the year. So for 6 months it heads out, and then it heads back in. But when it heads out and it's doing that circle, okay, if you were on a globe, there would be a 24 Antarctic sun. And I know you say there is, but if you look at the footage from the base that is down in Antarctica, the footage is chopped and edited, and they cut out 8 hours or so a day that would show the sun circling behind you. So when questioned on, hey, why is there 8 hours missing that would prove the circling sun? You know what they said? The same thing you said about the telescope. Oh, we don't have the hard drive space for it. So you're telling me on a webcam, at a security webcam that has basically unlimited funding, they can't give us a 24-hour stream that would prove that the sun does indeed circle around the bottom of the globe?
Okay, here's my answer to that, Brian. The answer is they don't need to prove this thing to you. There's a very small percentage of people who deny this thing, and a lot more people who agree. Why would they do this to prove it? They only put these kind of videos up, and we have a video from Anthony Powell who actually recorded 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Pardon me?
Before I made that point, though, you said that 24-hour sun did exist. Now that I made the point that the video is doctored, you said they don't have anything to prove to us. You can't just keep changing your mind like that.
No, it's not changing my mind. It's still the same answers every time. They don't have to give you a full picture of the Earth, but they still do. We're watching a video right now of Anthony Powell. He's a famous videographer who is showing us a video of the 24-hour Antarctica right now. With everything you need to believe, but you're going to watch this and people are still not going to believe. My question is, what will it take for you to believe?
Is it going to be that guy with his homemade rocket firing up out of his backyard?
No,
Mad Mike Hughes.
That guy's an idiot.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Thank you for saying that, because he's an idiot.
That guy's an idiot. That guy has nothing to do with flat. That guy has nothing to do with flat Earth. Screw that guy.
He's like, we don't associate ourselves with him.
I'm telling you, I want an unedited video from their station down there that shows the circling sun, and their video is actually doctored. And you're saying, well, that's because they don't have anything to prove to us. Well, why are they even doctoring it in the first place?
Well, how can you prove it's doctored or not? Like, that's the thing. You're going to say it's doctored.
Watch it. No, because I'm not saying because somebody told me. I'm saying because I studied it for months, and you can see the sun reset, and you can see the shadows reset, and it doesn't circle around you. The footage is looped.
Okay, so wait a minute. No, so we just watched the end of this video where they showed... Okay, so we watched the video where the sun actually did 24 hours, and then it showed a video of it, a video of the camera moving with the sun in a 24-hour span. I mean, we're watching evidence of it. Perhaps we're not watching the same stuff.
So also, what evidence do you have? Like, where's the absolute proof that it is flat? Where's the absolute proof of the AE map?
What's the magic bullet?
How about this? No,
like, if you're going against the
curvature anywhere.
No, that's incorrect.
That's a matter of perspective. Again, like, we're so tiny on a thing.
No. So they tell us that with the dimensions they give us of the Earth, that the Earth would have a drop of 8 inches per mile squared. So, for instance, Chicago from across Lake Michigan
refraction
is 60 miles. Okay, It's 60 miles. There would be 1,600 feet of curvature, meaning you're on a ball. So eventually, the buildings are gonna, they're gonna be obstructed by the ball. They're gonna lean away a little bit, right? There's 1,600 feet of curvature. This guy Josh Nowicki went out about 3 years ago now, and he took pictures from across Lake Michigan, and you could see the whole Chicago skyline. So the media comes on that night,
but you didn't see the base of the
building.
Yeah,
well, wait a minute. Yeah, Brian.
The buildings,
could you
because
see...
the base
no. I'm not saying just the top. I'm saying you could see the whole buildings. And
you can see the front door. You can see the front door of this place.
Yep. You can see all
the way.
There's all the way, okay?
There's no way, man.
All the way. No way. I can show you the pictures. I'll show you the pictures.
Well, I mean, I see pictures, I see videos of 24 hours, like, sun in Antarctica. Like, well, who am I supposed to believe, what is a credible source? Like, so who do you consider as a credible source?
Use your own logic. You take the formulas and the information they're giving you, and if you can prove it wrong with your own logic and common sense, then you should know that something's fishy. When they tell you Chicago isn't visible from 60 miles because there's 1,600 feet of curvature, this kid comes out, he takes multiple pictures of it, okay? You can see the whole thing. So you know what their rebuttal was? The weatherman came on TV and literally
it's refraction.
Told you,
it's a mirage.
He said, what you're seeing here is a mirage.
Yeah, right. I've seen that video.
You're not really seeing what you're seeing. And it wasn't a mirage. It wasn't wavy. It wasn't upside down.
But it was. It wasn't upside down, but it's an exaggerated picture. It's not as big as it looks like from there. I mean, your eyes can play tricks on you. When it comes to atmosphere, there's water vapor in the air.
Picture.
This is how light can bend. Light bends over seas and everything. It bends over these curves. Is why we get these illusions, these mirages. He says, like this is.
And it bends into a perfect. It bends into a perfect image, and then when I hop in a boat and I run a video camera for one side of Lake Michigan, and I keep it in focus the whole time, and I drive all the way over to Chicago, and it's still there, and there is no distortion or anything, you're still going to tell me that's a mirage?
Yeah, I mean, dude.
Because as light travels through the atmosphere, it gets blurry. It loses energy.
And none of those videos are showing a sharp image of it.
As you get closer, you're going through less and less atmosphere.
there's less and less atmosphere between you know, and the object. So yes, it's going to appear to crispen up as you get closer. I mean,
Crispin.
Crispin up. I mean, this
clarify maybe.
Yeah,
I
you know
got
what?
what he
Screw
said.
you guys.
I got what he was saying. I was enjoying what he said there. Okay, so hey, we don't have much time left, brother man. Thank you for coming on. I have one last thing that I do want to ask you about, and it's probably the biggest proof that I have of a round Earth, and it's the South. Oh, did we lose him? Oh, he's there. Okay, so I thought I heard a boing. It's the South Stars.
I just sent you a couple pictures. Can you see them in the Skype?
Oh yeah, I thought that's what I was hearing.
Yeah, I'm getting them.
Brian, did you hear me about?
Those are mirages, bro. That's Chicago from 60 miles. That's not a mirage.
Let me see. We're putting them up here. I'm gonna take a look at this shit here.
That is not a mirage.
Man, I don't see any front door. I see the tops of buildings, the Sears Tower or whatever.
I see what I would expect to see of, you know, a picture of a city from 60 miles away.
I did want to bring up. I did want to bring up this this Pythagorean proof of curvature. Now that math is calculated for a perfect sphere. Can we agree on that? Like,
sure, that's what it's calculated for, yeah.
Yes, and as we are not a perfect sphere, as we have been told, with Kansas being as flat as a pancake. You know, there are some places that are a little bit flatter.
Actually,
they're
it's
just
been proven. We are flatter than a
flatter
pancake.
than pancake. You have Neil Disgrace Tyson, as some people would like to call him in the Neil Disgrace.
Oh, you mean Captain? Well, actually.
Yes,
where he said it's like a pear
What
shape.
you're going to say about him is his oblate spheroid comment, which is another gatekeeping tactic. He said that for a reason. So when the larger distances of the southern hemisphere are discovered, which a lot of people are discovering now, he can say, oh, we told you it was wider below the equator. That's why he said that. And if Neil deGrasse Tyson, if it's not a perfect sphere, once again, let's say, you know, you say Kansas flatter than a pancake. We know Florida's very flat, okay? So if it's not a perfect sphere, and he says it's an oblate spheroid, then what the hell are these pictures that NASA has been showing us of a perfect sphere this whole time?
Good point.
Somebody's lying.
Great point.
Somebody's lying.
But perhaps from the views that we are seeing, yeah, I mean, well, he's talking in generalities. He's not trying to say that we're in a fucking pear shape, but rather it's going to be a little bit more. And when you look at something, let's say if I had like a pool ball that was a little bit smaller at the top than it was at the bottom, like you would never notice that. It's not like in a literal pear shape.
Bulging out at the equator. So like the north and south will both be smaller. Like, doesn't it bulge out at the equator? So like if you took a ball and just pushed it down a little bit so it
bulges out a bit
in the middle.
Yeah.
So once you cross the equator, then you're going back
and
again.
It's not like a fucking boy. It's not like a huge thing.
Right.
It's
No.
It's probably so minuscule that we can't really detect it with our naked eye. But fuck
just like the curvature.
Fuck it. Fuck all that shit. Right. So I got one last proof that I need to run by you, Brian. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, and I just sent you pictures of the photoshopped clouds on the photoshopped Earth.
We get it, man. It has to be.
Okay.
We get it. It has to be sometimes, right? But here's my definite proof that we live on a ball Earth, and it's something anyone can observe. Anyone can test this, and it's Sigma Octantis. It's the South Star. We could point a camera at the south, put it on a long exposure, and we will see that stars circle around it, and that is south.
Much the way the North Star does, yeah.
It is relative to north, so south relative to north. That means anyone can do it, but if anyone was to do it, it would be in a different direction south, because south is a big perimeter over a flat Earth. What about the South Star Sigma Octantis? What do you have to say about that?
That the stars are circling above us. It's not because we're spinning.
Dude, yeah, I get it. Just like North Star, you'll see the stars spin around the South Star
around
in the
this
south.
one point.
It's called Sigma Octantis. Actually, a lot of Southern Hemisphere nations, they use the Southern Crux in their flag. Australia, Brazil. There are a couple more, but they use that. And that Southern Crux spins around Sigma Octantis, which is the dignified South Star in our world. It's not quite in the middle, but it's like about a degree off, but it's still enough to be
around it,
and it's not as
so if
bright.
there's a specific point in the northern hemisphere you can point at and everything circles around it, and a specific point in the southern hemisphere that everybody can point at and everything circles around it, that could not
That's
exist
two domes.
if south is a perimeter that can only exist if south is a point.
Correct.
How can that only exist on a globe when we don't know what the stars are?
We know what the stars are.
If the south is a wall all the way around it, then someone on the eastern end of the perimeter and someone on the western end of the perimeter can't focus on the same star and have everything spin around it. They would have different skies.
If they're not totally synchronized at the exact same second, they most certainly could. Because the stars are going to rotate around. They're going to come around to the next person.
Right, but so again, going back to the record thing, like if you're completely across the record from each other, like on far sides of it, you are not going to have the same night sky. You're not going to be able to focus on one southern star that everything spins around. Like, you see all the pictures of the North Star with the long exposure lens. It stays still, and then you have all the tracers of the other stars around it. You can get that in
What I'm telling you is the stars aren't trillions of miles away, so what if you're not looking at the same stars and they're just a few thousand miles away?
So, wait a minute.
Like when people say when you travel farther south, you can't see the North Star because the Earth is curved and you're going around the globe. But that's not true. You can't see the North Star because you're moving farther away from it. Just like if my street light was on, I can see it. My neighbors can see it, but if I go 3 blocks away, I don't see my street light anymore.
Right.
I see a different set of street lights.
Hang on, so you're saying the Earth doesn't spin at all. So first off, why the stars are moving? Okay, but they would only be moving. They would only be moving around that one point in the middle, the eye hole of the record, the North Star. So why would there be a separate star that also has stuff spinning around it?
I don't know.
Do they move on their own like little eddy whirlpool things?
Right.
I would have to see it. Can you show me a video of this?
Yes. If you just Google simply the South Star trails, there are several amateur pictures.
Oh, I know what the trails look like. I'm talking about the Southern Star itself. I know the trails, and I know that they seem to go in an opposite direction, and there's a lot of explanations why they could do that.
No, he's saying South Star trails is then video of the South Star and a long exposure lens of showing stars going around it.
If you point your camera at the south, like if you're in the north and you point your camera to the north and do a long exposure, you'll notice the stars will spin around it. They do that in the opposite direction in the south because we're in a globe. It makes complete sense. Let's say in the south there's a globe, a dome, that we look at the top of that dome and it's a South Star. All the stars spin around it. Just like the north. You put those two domes together, what do you get? You get a goddamn globe. That's what we're talking about here.
We're saying there are two different points that have the same...
But the stars spinning in opposite directions and opposite hemispheres don't prove a globe.
Yes, they do.
You could recreate that test in your house. You could recreate that test in your living room with a laser and a magnifying glass.
Okay, but you don't have to. You can go outside and...
No, but the point is, how would there be two separate stars that are the center of the spinning?
Two people on two different continents.
On a flat Earth, if the stars are spinning above us, there's one point that they're spinning around. One. So how can there be two different ones?
Yes, that's right. So the top of the dome is the North Star. So how would there be anything circling in the south if it's going, let's say, east to west, or west or east, or whatever it's supposed to be traveling?
Why couldn't there be an inner ring and then be an outer ring of stars?
Oh, yeah, let's just keep making up stuff. That sounds great. Like, come on.
You guys are making up stuff, though. NASA's been making up this stuff since day one.
Listen, this stuff is backed up by several scientists, several credible sources. The burden of proof is really on the flat earthers. Not to like, hit on you or anything, but like honestly, we've had this information which has been proven by amateurs, by professionals. It's up to you guys to show us a picture of the flat Earth. That's what it's gonna take.
Not proven. If you take a Nikon P900, which is a very popular camera now,
indeed,
it has an 83 times zoom. It's only like a $600 camera. You can zoom in on the stars now, very close, and they're not 25 trillion miles away. I mean, you can zoom in, and they're flickering lights in the sky, dude.
Yeah, due to the atmosphere that we see through
also,
them.
the stars are...
It's gas up there. You see, like, things move, and, like, it's gas up there. That's
the light that's gotten to us
you think
it's
gonna be
million years. Like, the stars are probably dead by now.
Exactly, and
it's traveled through so much space to get to us.
That's another cool, trippy thing about space is that the light that we see, it took...
I'm talking about how close you can zoom in on them when you only have an 83 times zoom if they're 25 trillion miles away.
Man, it's a camera.
But you're not seeing the actual star. You're seeing the light as it finally reaches us.
Not only that, you're seeing the light that camera receives. It's not the light that you're getting. It's a different sort of light.
No, you're seeing the star, bro.
No,
you're looking right at it.
You're seeing what the camera's seeing, and the camera can be deceptive. Like sometimes people take pictures and there's little orbs in the pictures and shit that we never saw. Like it sees different things that we see. That's why we use cameras to see things that move in fast motion. We have cameras that see like way more frame rates than we can. That's exactly what's going on there, man.
Take a look at a video called what the stars really look like, and it's only like a 7-minute video.
I've seen it, man. It just looks like little. They're all pictures and videos of people that have zoomed in on like whatever, right, stars and such, and it's just like a plasma ball that's like moving up and down because we're looking through an atmosphere. If they were outside the atmosphere and they did that.
Do you think that a telescope proves that planets are spherical? Is that a good proof? Because you can see them in a telescope, right? Everybody's seen them.
Well, I think when you look at a telescope and to the moon,
are you
and
saying
hold up,
nothing is
and when you look into the moon and you see a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse and you see our shadow pass, it's a round shadow.
Definitely a curved shadow.
I'm not asking about the shadow. I'm asking about when you point at any celestial object, whether it's the moon, Mars, Neptune, any of the planets, and when you look at it, do you see a sphere in the sky?
Yes, I see a round object.
And no, you're wrong, because you can't see a sphere with 2 dimensions, and you're looking at a telescope with 1 eye. You see something that's round. It could be round and flat.
Okay, so round. If you want to make definitions by it, we see a circle in the sky. If that's what I'm trying to say, we see a circle.
So you're saying the moon and the sun are both also flat? We're just seeing the very bottom of them.
They very well could be. We can't say that they are just because they look like a ball in the sky. You can't tell it's a ball with a telescope.
Man,
depth perception is bad.
I mean, we have to be very perfectly placed underneath them. Like, if they were off a bit, around their rotation or whatever,
orbit,
you would be able to see the side of it a bit and see the second dimension,
something,
to see the flat side of it, whether it's shaped like a weight or whatever. Like, you'd be able to eventually, what
happens when the moon rotates? If you observe
the moon doesn't rotate, we see the same side all the time.
Look at the face of the moon. No. You know how there's certain craters on the moon, okay? I'm not going to pretend to know the names of them, but there's certain craters on the moon and there's certain spots on the sun, correct? Like there's markings.
Yeah.
If you observe the moon, okay, rather than rotate the way we're told it does, it rotates like a wheel, and you can literally follow those craters around it. So let's say there was a crater shaped like an L, for instance, and it was near the 3 o'clock, right? Mm-hmm. And you observe the moon for X amount of hours, you would see that L move to the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8. It would go around in a circle like that, not around the back side of the moon like we're told it rotates.
No, I've never been told the moon rotates. Like we always see the same face of the moon. That's why the dark side is so cold, because it never gets any heat.
We are told it rotates. But we are told it rotates.
I've always heard that we always see the same. We always see the same.
Well,
side
because
of the moon.
it's the way that it rotates.
No sense. They tell us because it's perfect.
It makes absolute sense how it does it. It's orbiting and spinning at the same rate that we are, and that way we see the same face. I mean, if it was just like spinning like regular and it was just staying in place, we'd see different things. We'd see different parts of the sun. But it rotates at the same rate that it orbits around us. Therefore, we see the same side.
So even if that's true, how does the face rotate in the way that I'm telling you it does? If I'm telling you the truth, I know you'd have to.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying that it rotates.
He was saying that if you see it,
we're looking at the moon right now.
Look at this. Say this little. There's that little spot there about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
That white spot there.
The white spot. Okay.
If you watch it for a while, that spot is going to move around, and it's going to turn like a clock face. I have never heard that.
I've never heard that. I've never seen that, but
I've always
something I'll look into.
I've always been told that we see the same side of the moon. It doesn't spin.
We just assume the science has been done. It does do that.
The same. We see the.
All right, so we have to wrap this up here, Brian. So
yeah, it's been.
Yeah, we've gone on for
like
nearly 2 hours here, y'all. So we have to finish this up. Brian, you are one of the best flat earther we've ever talked to. Keep it going, brother, man. We don't agree, but
you have more
You have great information.
You, like, you have more actual fucking knowledge behind what you're saying than anybody else we've talked to. That's for damn sure.
Goddamn right, man. We applaud you, man.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, everyone's clapping for you. Awesome.
I mean, we might have to split this into 2 shows, but we could still have you on again. I feel there's a lot more, even outside of Flat Earth, there's apparently a lot more we could talk to you about.
And I want you to give us an answer for the South Star. Investigate, because 2 different people on 2 different continents, let's say someone in Australia. No, even better yet, someone in South Africa, someone in Antarctica. Argentina, excuse me. They're looking at the South Star at the same time and observe the same thing where stars will circle around the southern point, the most southern point, the South Star. Look into that, because to me that definitely solidifies the round Earth.
Happen on the globe.
The ball Earth, yeah, not the round Earth, because the flat thing can be round as well. The ball Earth, if you will. Brian, would you like to plug anything before we go?
Yeah, just my website, I guess. If you guys want to check out any of my research from, 9/11, Apollo, Sandy Hook, NASA, Flat Earth, whatever, I investigate all that stuff. It's therealnewsonline.com, and I have a Facebook group, same name, therealnewsonline.com. I'm always on there and always conversing with people, and I do radio shows. They were irregular, but it's, whenever we get a chance to do them, hopefully doing one next week or so.
Absolutely. You've been great, man. Thank you very much for coming on, dude. We appreciate it. Real quick.
I'm glad that we could be, I guess sometimes we got a little bit step over each other, but like it was very amicable, and it was very
civil.
It was a very good debate.
Oh, it's all good, bro. All good.
Yeah,
we're not,
which I appreciate very much. I appreciate that very much. As
brother, as long as there's no personal attacks, I'm cool, man.
Well, I think you smell weird.
So, quick with just a minute or something. What do you think of this recent school shooting? Because I know you're definitely a thing of Sandy Hook. What do you think about this recent shooting?
I haven't looked yet, okay, because I was busy over the last couple of days doing something. But based on their track record, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's definitely fake, but at this point, these events need to be proven to me that they happened. And I've seen a lot of bullshit interviews come out of it, but I haven't investigated it yet. I can't argue the facts, so I can't really speak on it yet. But I would be very surprised if it was real. Just like how people used to say when you're little, how could somebody go and shoot up a school? Well, actually, it's because they don't. Nobody wants to go and shoot up a school. Right. But I haven't looked into this one yet. I will this week, though.
Well, Brian, thank you so much.
Man, you'll have to get back with us.
Check them out on The Real News Online. Do you have a Twitter, something that people can tweet at you?
Nah, I never use it. The easiest way is
the Facebook.
Just go to my website, and there's a link there for my Facebook and my email. If people want my email to direct message me, it's ricefoot@gmail.com.
Ricefoot@gmail.com.
Yeah, ricefoot@gmail.com.
Copy that. Well, thank you very much, Brian. We've enjoyed your conversation. You keep on fighting the good fight or bad fight, whatever it is, man. You just keep fucking fighting. We enjoyed your time, man. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Thank you, guys.
Take care, man.
Anytime. You too.
He knew his shit. At least he was prepared for it. At
Woo!
least.
Fuck, man.
God damn,
that was, dude.